Let's take back our city, one vaccination at a time. Safe and effective COVID-19 vaccines are here. Get yours when it's your turn. Learn more at nyc.gov/COVID vaccine. No matter how much we want it gone, COVID-19 is still here. That's why we all need to keep wearing our face coverings, keep physical distancing, and keep washing our hands. And as always, stay at home if you're feeling sick. The COVID-19 vaccine is available to certain groups in NYC, but now is not the time to stop protecting ourselves. Learn more at nyc.gov/health/coronavirus.
Buenas, me llamo Manuel. Esta es la segunda vez que cruzo desde ayer. Verás, hace un par de días crucé sin problemas. Pensé que ya lo había hecho. Cacha la migra que me manda de regreso. Conocí a la gente. Estuve a punto de convencerlo que mirara para el otro lado. Gasté lo último que me quedaba para volver a cruzar.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversaciones Música, presented by Hostos Center for the Arts and Culture. My name is José Calderón. Thank you for possibly having joined us before, joining us today, and hopefully joining us possibly in the near future. The Hostos Center for the Arts and Culture, an integral part of Hostos Community College of the City University of New York since 1982, is a resource for students and faculty and serves the cultural needs of South Bronx residents and neighboring communities. The Hostos Center for the Arts and Culture is recognized nationally as a leader in Latin and African-based programming and is dedicated to the development of emerging artists and the creation of new work. Hostos Center events are sponsored by the Hostos Community College Foundation with funds from the National Endowment for the Arts, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council, the Coalition of Theaters of Color, the New York State Council on the Arts with the support of Governor Andrew M. Cuomo and the New York State Legislature, the Howard Gilman Foundation, the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, the Office of New York State Assemblyman Jose Rivera, and the Office of New York City Council member Rafael Salamanca Jr. Visit the Hostos Center website at www.hostoscenter.org to learn more and to view upcoming online events. Well, keeping this in mind, can you believe that what we have enjoyed in the past served as a learning tool in the present and in the future for generations to come? These conversations we have together help to celebrate the richness of our culture through the excitement of entertainment. And this is the case of what we'll chat about today, as my background, as you can see and enjoy, and the authorities in the matter, because we'll be speaking to a historian, a musician, and a professional dancer to describe their experiences. So it'll require a bit of remembrance for those who experienced it, and an imagined scenery based on what we've learned of history. So picture this, 1947 in Midtown Manhattan on Sunday evenings. Wow. This was the beginning of the placement of Latin music on one of the most important and influential dance halls, the Palladium Ballroom. Located at 1698 Broadway on the corner of 53rd Street, this second floor dance hall became considered America's most important venue for the growth and development of Latin music, expanding to an all Latin format, extending to 4 nights a week. With this incredible growth and popularity came the gathering of some of the most important performers, personalities, dancers of all walks of life, giving way to new dance steps, genres, and popular trends. Packed frequently beyond its 750-person capacity, it established a sense of pride and fashion, having attendees wear the utmost best amongst showcasing their dancing skills. Owner Maxwell Hyman not only sat on a gold mine of a flourishing income, he also helped to propel many artists into stardom locally and globally. He drew patrons of all nationalities, races, ethnicities, and social classes, hosting competitions and acts of many anticipated, attentively well-recorded, and live transmissions of events on local radio programs. Well, before we present our first guest, let's get a taste of what the feel was at the Palladium Ballroom. Our first and main guest today is an authority on one of the main performers of this venue, as well as many others who shared the stage and importance to our history. He is also responsible for rescuing and restoring many lost and out-of-print recordings, mapping the puzzle pieces of a possibly lost era. Author of Mambo Diablo, My Journey with Tito Puente, and returning to Conversaciones Música, I have the honor to present Mr. Joe Conzo Sr., backed by popular demand. Joe. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Conzo. Joe, unmute your mic. Thank you.
I got it.
You got it. You got it. You're an expert at this. How are you, Joe?
Good, good.
Joe, are you excited?
Glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And
of course.
It's a great subject.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know a lot of this, and that's why I've asked you to join us today to talk about a lot of the history and just review it so people could understand and relive those moments. Tell us a little bit about the location, the area, the structure of the building, what you can remember of it.
Well, it was on the corner of 53rd Street and Broadway. The advantage was 50 feet away, you had Birdland, the jazz corner of the world. And around the corner, you had every jazz club you could think of. And Broadway at that time was the mecca of everybody would go downtown. You know, it originally started in Harlem, but Federico Pagani convinced Max Hyman to let the bands play at the Palladium. And it was a sight to see. I mean, everybody was dressed to the nines. I don't know if you hear me, Joe, because there's
absolutely. We all hear you.
Everybody was dressed to the nines. And on Wednesday night was the, I guess you'll talk about with Charlie, with Carlos. But Wednesday night it was celebrities. Everybody would go up there. Marlon Brando, Sammy Davis Jr., Frank Sinatra, and nobody bothered them. Everybody went there to see the dances and to listen to that music.
Absolutely.
It was the big three. It was Machito, Puente, Tito Rodríguez, and they were all trying to outdo each other.
Joe, what's the year, the specific year it started hosting? They started hosting Max Hyman Latin music specifically at the ballroom. I read somewhere stating 1942, and others stating 1946.
40 what?
I'm not sure. You clarify that, because this is what I read and I picked up on some lectures.
No, first of all, the Palladium was an old recorder, a dance studio. It was called Alma Dance Studio. And there's different owners. The Palladium technically started in 1949 because Puente started there in 1950 and he did 14 years. And you could tell by the flyers that Johnny and I and Gilberto Santa Rosa have been posting on Facebook. I mean, you go according to the recordings of how these guys started. And, you know, they were conjuntos, big bands. You know, Puente started on RCA Victor in 1949. His biggest hit was Ran Can Can. So it varies. You really can't say it started then. You know, as close as we can get, I'm saying 1949.
Understood. What could have possibly
and
driven
then they had dance.
Okay. Joe, what do you think drove Max Hyman to initiate a mambo night at the Palladium Ballroom? What do you think drove him to do so? And you can sit back a little bit so that way, you know, the idea.
I would say what drew him to do that, he listened to people like Federico Pagani, Catalino Rolón. These were the promoters at the time. And Federico was the daddy of all the promoters. He knew how to wheel and deal, and he knew how to get the crowds. And that's basically what Max did. He listened to people.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So Catalino Rolón and Federico Pagani were the official promoters of the Palladium Ballroom.
Yeah.
They were responsible for bringing some of the bands from Cuba, from what I read.
Well, that came down later on in the 50s, in 1958, 59, por Fajardo, Aragon, and todo. Somebody just asked the question, what, I don't know if I'm allowed to.
Did Luis Máquina come about from the Palladium?
Oh, yes. It was a barrio. Somebody just asked, when did the Palladium end? The Palladium closed in 1966 because there was a raid in the Palladium in 1964.
Excellent.
And they lost their liquor license. But the Palladium closed in 1966.
Wow.
And as far as the bands, Max Hyman didn't let anybody record at the Palladium. Maybe Aníbal Vasquez and Vic Powell, the baseball player. Later on in 1960, Machito, Puente, and Rodríguez convinced them to let Ernie Hensley record. That's why some of those recordings are very historic.
And we're going to get to hear some of those legendary recordings throughout the course of our conversation today. In your book, you wrote about the fact that everyone there was elegant and graceful. You elaborated mentioning subtle and bold colors. Tell us a little bit about that. So those that didn't.
Well, in those days, there were sharkskin suits. I mean, everybody was, you could see, based on Mambo and Madness, everybody was dressed to the nines. You know, in those days, all the clubs were that way. El Cabrojeño, Rureto would rent you ties and rent you a jacket. Women had to wear a dress, or, you know, you couldn't wear pants. That came later on in the 60s with Eddie Palmieri wearing dungarees and everything. But all of them had to dress to the nines at the Palladium. There's no way you could go to the Palladium in a t-shirt, dungarees, or anything.
So it was a very specific dress code. I think we're having some technical difficulty. All right, let's go with the first tune that we have, and we'll go back to speaking to Joe in a minute. We're going to be listening to, of course, and he's an expert on this since he wrote the book, Mambo Diablo, which I have in my hand, and you could see and appreciate. If you could get a copy, please do so. Let's listen to some Tito Puente, and we have a live version recorded at the Palladium, Juventud del Presente. Let's go with that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back after listening to that live recording of Tito Puente, and we're back with Joe Conzo Sr. Joe?
I'm back. I froze. I told Greg, I live in the mountains, so things happen.
Understood, but the show must continue, and we're continuing.
Oh, yeah, always.
Wonderful
And I love the
presentation.
pictures. A lot of those pictures were there. Somebody asked about Ramon Olivero.
Oh, you
Ramon
saw it.
Olivero was a band that played in 1930s. And they asked him because Tito Puente was part of that band when he was 16 years old. And so was Al Santiago's father. No, they did not play at the Palladium. First of all, let me say something. To play at the Palladium, you had to audition to play at the Palladium. Okay? And I remember Mario Baus and all of them telling us it wasn't easy. When they finished at 3 o'clock in the morning, they had to rehearse.
Wow.
When they would go on at 5 o'clock in the morning, Tito Rodríguez would go on at the same, and that's why these bands were so great. And the only bands that didn't rehearse were the bands from Cuba. They probably rehearsed here, but they didn't have to audition because they were well known in Cuba. Fajardo, Aragon, and folks like that.
Gotcha. Some other questions that came about. Well, you initially said that there was no live footage of the Palladium in history, because
they have done stories about the Palladium, and those that say talk about the Palladium, they were never there. First of all, they were too young. Palladium closed in 1966, and they make it seem like they were a first person that they were there. There was another Palladium on 14th Street that was opened years later. But the Palladium, unfortunately, there was no footage. Mambo Madness is the Palm Gardens. That is not the Palladium. Max Hyman, he's no longer with us, but I like to ask him the $54 question. Why did you let nobody record there?
He had his reasons.
Absolutely. I mean, for that matter, there's no footage of the Corso. Later on, some of it. A lot of clubs didn't believe in new technology. Don't forget, Ernie, when he recorded there, or Aníbal Vasquez, they recorded with tape recorders, open reels. These things were humongous.
I could imagine. Joe, tell us about your first experience visiting the Palladium Ballroom.
When I visited the Palladium Ballroom, I was there in 1959, and I was fascinated by Puente because I was what you call a frustrated drummer. It was something to see. Tito wasn't there that night. I forgot who, I think it was Machito. And then another time I went there was Celia, Rolando La Seria. And, it was one of those things. Eventually, I got to meet Tito. And then I saw him again from the Palladium. I was in the service, and I saw him again in Japan. And he says, I know you. And then we started talking. And that's how we developed our friendship. But it was a sight to see. I mean, you went upstairs, these long stairs, and it was unbelievable, the dancers and everybody. And if you got into an argument, you went down the other stairs. The bouncers did not play.
Okay.
Those bouncers, they don't care if you was your husband, you were going down them stairs. There was no, that's why when we did the movie, The Mambo Kings, I told the director, nobody ever got shot in the Palladium. He told me, Joe, it's a movie. I said, okay, fine. But no, very well structured, disciplined and everything. It was Sonny Grasso from the French Connection that was instrumental in closing the Palladium in 1964. And Tito ran into him and I when we went to Judge Edwin Torres's house, and who happened to be a good friend of Sonny Grasso. And Tito told him, "You're the guy that caused me to lose my job." It was a lot of fun. No, but it was all done in fun, But it was what it was,
Absolutely, absolutely.
Louis Machina was one of the greatest dancers there. I mean,
Absolutely, absolutely. And someone had asked about him, and you clarified two points on that question without even your intention. So I appreciate that. The concept of the Big Three came about at the Palladium, and the fighting or the wanting of the billing, the top billing. That was the concept.
That was something that Tito and so did Tito Rodríguez want. Machito really didn't care.
Okay.
Because he would kick both their butts together. Machito was a top-notch man. They had to do it with Jose Cubello, and they were all part of the same agency, Alpha Artists. Tito Rodríguez, Tito Puente, Machito, and everything. And then as time went on, their contracts read. They would get top billing. And then it was the promoters that really pushed it. Those two were friends. I mean, Tito Rodríguez Jr. would tell you they were friends. Tito did a lot of arrangements for Tito Rodríguez. And it was something that they never got together because of the billing. But in my book, it also tells you that 1650 Broadway was Tito Rodríguez's office, 1674 Broadway was Puente's office. We'd come downstairs, walk down the street, and here comes Tito Rodríguez. And these two would talk to each other. So everybody that said, they couldn't stand, they were killers, they wanted to kill each other. Well, I don't think so.
Understood. Name some of the other great names that headlined the marquee at the Palladium. Some of the bands, others that you didn't get a chance to see that you would have loved to.
Well, I mean, from Cuba, you had Roberto Faz, you had Aragon, you had Jose Fajardo, and then you had the earlier bands, the young bands. When I say young bands, the Eddie Palmers, the Charlie Palmers, the Ray Barrettos, they all played at the Orchestra Broadway, Pacheco.
Who we just lost. Yeah.
These guys, and mind you, if you think about it, you even showed a picture. Ray Barretto and Johnny Pacheco playing with Tito Puente, being part of the orchestra in 1959, 60, and then 3-4 years later, now they're headlining.
Very true.
At the Palladium.
Very true.
I mean, these were some things to see. I mean, and then you got to see them in other clubs. Don't forget, this whole city was saturated with nightclubs.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk more about that, but let's go to some music and more visual so that everyone could enjoy. Let's go with, since you mentioned it, Orquesta Broadway, let's go with a tune, Galletana, by Orquesta Broadway, recorded at the Palladium.
Okay.
Es algo que no comprendo, se pasa el día diciendo, por donde este caso muere, ay Galletana, te lo juro, ponme la mano. Ay Galletana, te lo juro, ponme la mano. Su lengua no se resiste, por eso todo lo cuenta, entonces te darás cuenta de todo lo que tú hiciste. Ay Galletana, te lo juro. juro, ponme la mano. Ay, Cayetana, te lo juro, ponme la mano. Si vas algún día a casa, o si en la plaza la encuentras, entonces te darás cuenta de todo lo que le pasa. Ay, Cayetana, te lo juro, ponme la mano.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to bring on a second guest, someone very important in the history and the development of the music, not only at the Palladium, but across Latin America. Growing up in El Barrio, Spanish Harlem, and influenced greatly by his father, Johnny La Vaca Rodríguez, this gentleman began playing bongos at the age of 17 and has played with the who's who of Latin music and beyond. His world acclaim has been having had the opportunity to play with the big three of Latin music, Tito Puente, Tito Rodríguez, and Machito, to give us a clear picture of what went on in those days at this acclaimed dance hall. Please welcome once again our first cameo this evening, Mr. John Dandy Rodríguez. Johnny.
Hi, Jose.
Vaya, Johnny, ¿cómo estás?
I'm fine. Very excited. You know, this is my subject. I love this. I can talk about the Palladium all day long.
Well, this is the time. This is the time to talk. Get everything out on the open, clarify, inform. Let's do this. Let's do this. Johnny, tell us about prepping you up to go to the Palladium before you went there. Tell us about your dad playing there and all that.
Well, my dad did play there with Rodriguez and other groups, but I'll never forget the first day when after I joined Puente's band. They said we're playing the Palladium. Uh, Walking up the steps, I had heard about it, and it's everybody's young bongo player dream to wind up playing in the Palladium, and especially with Puente. Okay, so when I walked in there, it was amazing. It happened to be on a Wednesday night. 'Cause I remember when I joined, the band used to be hired 4 nights: Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That was usually the contract. And sometimes you would do 3 if you had a big club date somewhere else. But that was norm. That was the norm. You would play. I'm playing Palladium this week: Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So when I go up there, it was amazing. I mean, the energy, uh, the people dressed so sharp. Those like Joe Conzo was saying, those days. Beside the bands playing, competing, they also were competing in uniforms and how sharp they look. If you notice a lot of the pictures from years back, you see the bands all had bow ties and tuxedos or tuxedo jackets, or the mohair suits, or the shark skin suits, and you walk into the plane with your cashmere coat. That was the look, brother. Cufflinks on your shirt, initials on your cuffs, the pinky ring with your JR. That was the thing, brother. Okay,
I hear you.
because a lot, believe it or not, you know how the girls follow the clubs that have different swinging things. So it was something to look sharp, to bring the following behind you to those places. So beside playing, you have to look sharp. You have to look
Of course,
sharp.
and you've always maintained it, and you've always modeled after your father and the band leaders that you played with. But before you get even deeper, tell us about your father, because a lot of people don't understand or know the history of your father, because he played there not only with Tito Rodriguez, he played with, did he play with Argueso? Did he play?
Oh yeah, he played with Argueso, played with Cougar, played with Cubero, played with Desi Arnaz. He played with everybody. My father was just the way I'm doing now. He did that in the 40s and early 50s. My father was part of the first Tito Rodriguez conjunto. When he decides to make his first conjunto, they go up to the Grove Singers, 1940. I have the pictures. I've posted it many times. It says Tito Rodriguez first conjunto. And my dad was part of that with Gil Lopez and a bunch of people. And also, my father was part of the first so-called Tito Puente move when they were all playing. 5 guys were playing with Pupi Campos band, which is very, very popular back in those days. Okay, and Tito Puente decided to take Jimmy Fritzauta, Biting Aviles, my father, Al Escobar, and Pianista, and Tito, was five of them. And they make this band called the Piccadilly Boys or whatever was the name. Joe knows more about that than I do, So they make so my dad's been playing that whole scene for many, many years. My dad recorded with Rodriguez, recorded with Puente. My father shared the album Cuban Carnival with Willie Bobo on bongo, and my father did half the session. My father did 2 albums playing on conga. I can say it now, but it's a long time ago, when Batato got busted a couple of times in life. And my dad was very close to Macho and Mario Bausa. And they called my dad to my father plays on the album Mi Amigo Machito, and went up at the Concord. My father does half of those recordings. So he did the big 3 before me. Okay.
Wow.
So I remember going as a kid to a rehearsal in the afternoons at the Palladium. So I had seen the Palladium before I played the Palladium.
Excellent.
Okay. So when I get the gig with Tito, and my first week I went to play the Palladium, it was like, wow, And when I went up there, it's amazing. It's amazing. The energy, the Wednesdays was so interesting because of the mixture of people. Because, you know, you think you're going to a light club. No. Wednesdays was 1/3 Julio, 1/3 Italiano, 1/3 Latino, and another piece of Moreno Americano. Because back then it was about dancing. It was about dancing. And there was tons of dances, man, you know, and they went to that Palladium. And Wednesday was beautiful because of the show. You would always bump into some kind of movie star hanging out. They loved that scene, you know. And it was nice, you know, right in the middle. Say we would play our first set, and another band would play the second set. Right before the third set of the night, it would say showtime. Put the lights on, you know, and then Charlie would be dancing, or Mambo Aces would be dancing, whatever. They do a contest, they do an exhibition, and it was beautiful, man. It was beautiful. It was, I mean, something you have to see it to, you know, to understand what I'm saying. It was.
We have to take your word for it, and we see the passion that you have in telling us these stories.
No, it's beautiful because it's something we'll never see again. Unfortunately, you know, not this lifetime. You know, there was so many great dancers back in those days. And I'm not talking about such a Congo dance. I'm talking about real dancers, man. Remember, a few years before, you could still go to Cuba. Cuba was coming here. Yeah, we had an intercambio of great dancers, man. You know, Louis Macana used to tell me that he used to check the Cubano when he used to come. Louis Macana used to go to a Club Cubano up in the Bronx. You know, and they had these great dancers. You know, non-famed dancers, just great funky dancers. You know, Louis picked all that stuff up, brother. Louis was Johnny can tell you. Louis, I mean, girls were lining up to dance with Louis. You know, yeah, but he had that thing. You know, it was beautiful. It was about dancing and about good music.
Let me ask you, what were some of the challenges? Because we talk about the greatness and the positivity of the Palladium Ballroom, but what were some of the challenges you think came about when playing in the Palladium? You know,
I mean, it wasn't a challenge. It was great competition. You know, when we get off the stage, say, I remember one night I came up to stage with Papi Calavieca, which is the conga player, my compadre, you know, coming up before we start playing. And that Sonora Matancera was playing. And they were burning, you know. And I remember in the back room, look, my hair's tied up. I just got goosebumps telling you. I remember Papi saying, "Oye, hay que ponerla hoy." You know, that was always a thing. You know, you got to play. These guys they left that stage hot, brother. You got to play today. You got to play.
Well, speaking of hot, we're going to play a hot number to follow up and bring our next guest on. But we're going to listen to some Machito. What do you think about that?
Dale, papa, dale.
Dale Jamón at the Palladium.
Dale jamón a Las mujeres de hoy en día se paran en el balcón para incitar a los hombres y cuando le dan jamón se baila una champelona. Dale jamón a la beba, que comelona, que comelona. Dale jamón a la beba, que comelona, que comelona. Yo tengo una borincana que es muy linda y sabrosona. Yo tengo a una borincana que es muy linda y sabrosona, que cuando le doy jamón se me pone rebozona. Dale jamón a la beba, que comelona, que comelona. Dale jamón a la beba, que comelona, que comelona. Las mujeres de hoy en día son como el café molido. Las mujeres de hoy en día son como el café molido. No saben freír huevos con jamón y están buscando marido. Dale jamón a la beba, que comelona, que comelona. Dale jamón.
Well, continuing with our conversaciones, we have another great friend. This personal friend I've known for over a decade serves as an inspiration to me and anyone who has been dancing within our gatherings of our circle. To give a little insight, I met this gentleman as he began dating his wife, and I admired his style of dancing even before I acknowledged who he actually was. When I found out his history, I was just bedazzled. Born in Barrio Obrero, Puerto Rico in the early 30s, it was his grandmother Marcela who instilled that love of music and dance within him, while his parents paved the way of future migrating to New York. Shortly after his arrival in 1947 and earning his first wages at La Marqueta, he continued his passion, growing into one of the fastest and most popular dancers of the Palladium Ballroom era, amongst many greats we remember and cherish fondly. To get a taste of that, let's watch this video and we'll introduce him shortly. Well, to speak of his experiences, let's bring out the presence and memories of Mr. Carlos Cha-Cha Taps Arroyo. Carlos, welcome.
¿Cómo están, hermano?
I'm happy, I'm ecstatic because everybody got the chance to see you now and saw you, what, a little over 50 years ago?
¿Cómo?
A little over 50 years ago?
50 years ago?
Yes. Carlos, tell us how you started dancing. Explain to us how you started dancing.
Well, that's a long story. But when I started dancing, I was a kid. It's a baby. From my grandmother used to took me, things to dancing and things like that. And I was a baby, But that was my something that's all I could do, dance, And I came to this country in 1947, and from there on, we used to have it was like only one street, Madison Avenue, between 116th Street, 110th Street. We used to do dances like Casita Maria, parties in the houses, in the apartment, and until we go dance dinner. We used to go to a club called in the Bronx. What's the name of that club? Try to remember the names.
Your brothers can help you out. Joe, Dandy.
Which club in the Bronx?
In the Bronx, in Intel Avenue,
Tritons.
Oh,
Tritons.
No,
No, the Tropicana, Charlie.
yeah,
Hunts Point Palace.
I used to go downstairs, upstairs, downstairs.
Hunts
Roberto,
Point Palace.
Oh,
Hunts
the
Point.
Carlos Ortiz Tropicoro.
no, el Tropicoro fue más tarde. Oh,
And that was Tropicana was in the 60s.
the
Charlie, the Tropicana.
Tropicana. No, the Tropicana.
Westchester.
In Westchester Avenue.
Yes.
Used to call. I forgot the number.
Don't worry about it, Carlos. It'll come to you. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. The important thing is that you started dancing.
It will come back to me.
Of course it will. Of course it will.
Charlie, did you dance in the Park Plaza?
Yeah, the Park Plaza. But I used to dance there. But soon I dance, and people start coming around. I used to dance. Marta Cordero used to the aunt of Cordero Jr. the jockey.
Sí.
To dance, and the bouncer used to come over, and he took me out. You underage. Me put outside the street, so I used to dance outside the street. The band standing, and Julian Dino was playing, and it came out. Okay, but my dancing started when I went to the first time I went to Palladium Ballroom.
Excellent. Tell us about it. Tell us about it.
¿Qué año, Charlie? ¿Qué año fue ese?
What year?
I went in there in the 50s.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
59, 50. And I went there and I was scared, believe me, because, my color, and I never passed the roasting, so everybody said, watch out. So I have about one or two friends that we used to look, let's go to the Palladium, We went the first time we went there, we had to make a line, make a line to pay 125, 115 cents.
Yeah.
Wow.
To make a line.
Wow.
Then you had to have a tie. You had to have a tie, and you pay downstairs and make a line, go upstairs, and it has a place that when you check your coats and your jacket, they rent ties. They used to rent the tie, get 50 cents for the tie. If you want the tie, you take it, but you gotta pay. You don't have no tie, you gotta rent the tie to put the tie on,
To get inside.
The Palladium also, they had it was like a bench in the size. You go to the window, and one side was, they have tables, little tables and that, and the entrance was like on wood, they don't have that iron things like that. So we walk in there. I walk in there and so I look people, and I'm scared to ask people to dance, in my skin, and there are only a few people. Finally, I asked a girl to dance, I said, so she started dancing with me. So I started dancing with her, and, we start talking. So we start talking, I dance, and I just start dancing little by little. But they got corners, they got good dancers in one corner, another dancers, it was like a four corners, So you look at the corners of dancing, you start dancing, going there, and I start looking, and look at the people dancing, I say, well, let me go to that corner. And then soon we went to that corner, all the one that was dancing there already, they start jumping, and so I start jumping with them, I start doing the thing, and start rolling, and say, oh, you belong here. Don't go over there, you belong here, So I start dancing there. But anyway, that was the place to go. And I used to go there, and look, people, that's where I met I met Tito. I met Tito Puente. I met it there, and he was playing. By the time he had no band, he just started with a band called the Piccadilly Boy. The reason Piccadilly Boy came in because I used to wear a coat that they called the Piccadilly. That coat used to be a Piccadilly coat. Tito used to wear a coat of Piccadilly. I used to wear a coat with a Piccadilly coat with a belt in the back and things like that. You know, that's where that name Piccadilly, Tito and Piccadilly Boy came from there, from that coat. You know, and I used to look at that. So I started carrying Tito's
Instruments.
I started carrying his drum, you know, so I could go to places that he played, you know, walking free, you know. And every place that he go and play, I bring the drums, you know. So then finally, I was so scared of the Palladium, you know, every time with that time, I was so scared to walk in there, you know, see these people, you know, see skin, only a few, about a few people, you know, that skinny. And I'm walking fine, you know, finally, I start dancing, and competition, bam, I hit it hard, you know, I start moving, and I'm flying, dancing, you know, flying and moving fast, and every time, I'm going to do faster than this one, faster than this one, and run, keep running, you know, and so that was my thing, dancing. That was my life, dancing. So, the Palladium, I don't know if you people know, but the Palladium, it used to call their studio, was a dance studio, you know? So it became Palladium, and the owner was called Joe Del Mando, was his name, you know? And then Max Jaime bought the place from this guy, you know, and kept him as a manager in the place, you know. And Joe Del Mando was there. I got friendly with all these guys, the bouncers, or bouncer called Jimmy. Was Jimmy, and anyway, it was just there. He
Carlos, tell us about you winning your first competition, because they had competitions there and you won a competition.
Well, for a competition, see, every time I dance, I got the number one. Boom, you know, and then I win, you know. But then I became professional in there, because one time I said I got to do something different. I used to dance with a girl. I met a girl. She used to live on 117th Street, called Carmen. Her name was Denchi.
Yep.
We danced with her, you know, and I think we're going to a Palladium. I got to the Palladium. And I made a team with her and danced. But they were greatest dancers in the Palladium, you know. They were like
Absolutely.
Tybee, was Tanya, was Janice Rodríguez, mother was Tati.
Thank you.
She moved. She moved. There was one girl that called Jackie Del Mois.
Sí, Jackie también.
So, ain't nobody who danced with her, you know, because she was, and I used to dance a lot with her. And I used to dance with, then I decided to do something different. I don't want to dance. I want to make something different. So I make it. So Max Jaime one time I say, listen, I want to dance with a girl. He said, no, no, no. So I told him, okay, I'll go someplace and maybe I'll go to Roseland. Then he said to me, no, 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 no Roseland, no Roseland. No, Roseland.
The competition, the competition.
Okay. So I started dancing in the Palladium, But the best thing in the Palladium that I did was the way when the band comes, no matter what band came, all the dancers come and that play only if you dance, but you don't dance, you can stand like now the way they do that. The people play, they can't even dance, so that time, people working there, go there, used to go, bands play. To see the show, people used to sit in the floor,
Right.
In the floor when you're doing the show,
Mhm.
Then I met, Marlon Brando, I met him there. I met Sammy Davis, I met a few, who started because that place they used to rent it. They used to rent it for the shows that go on Broadway, So they rent on Wednesday we used to go on that and rehearse there, and rehearse. But then you used to tell them, listen, you can rehearse now, I said, wow, So when they start coming, and then they do the show for the Broadway. But the Palladium is a thing that I will never see a dance hall like that one.
Don't think so. I don't
That
think
was
so. We're gonna go to some music and then we're gonna wrap it up with our discussion. We're gonna go with some Tito Puente, Barabatiri, and more pictures, and we'll come back, okay?
Yeah, baby.
Wonderful, wonderful remembrance. There's a few questions that I want to ask you before we wrap up because we're short on time. Let me start off by asking, anyone knows the meaning of Babarabatiri? Or is this just something that was just invented on the spot? Joe?
According to Tito Puente, he did a show called Jazzbo Collins in the 50s. Was at the Birdland. And he said, Tito must have been joking. He said it was ice cream. That's what he said, Babarabatiri was ice cream.
Okay.
I mean, that was composed by Antal Dali.
Yo, Conzo, I am now friends with Anta Dali's daughter on Facebook, and she told me the story. It's a religious word.
Oh, okay.
He was, into the religion, and it had to do with that. How, I don't know, but she didn't want to get into details, but it had to do, it meant something, okay? It's not un disparate.
Okay, I'm just telling you what Tito said.
Yeah, I know, but you probably didn't know or didn't do the research, but she's, believe it or not, she's having a hard time trying to collect royalties for that song because, long story, but I've been trying to help. I hooked her up with Herman, which is our friend on Facebook, who works with those companies, and they're trying to get her monies owed to that family because of the composer royalties for the Babarabatiri.
Well, I hope they're able to gain that. Guys, someone asked, and you could refrain from answering if you want, if at the time of the Palladium, was it pretty clean, straight edge, or people doing, drugs at the time? Or was that not a scene? Because I know that came years later.
Well, that's what closed the Palladium.
Yeah. It was different drugs in those days.
Different drugs. It was in Sonny Grasso went there dressed as and Frank King, these guys from the French Connection. And in the judge's house, he was telling Tito and I, it was, they had offered a young lady a joint, and she worked out of the district attorney's office. And that's how they went back undercover. And in 1964, when they said it was a raid, there was pot, maybe some blow, lo que sea, but it was mostly smoke, on the floor.
I'm going to put my 2 cents and say it was pot, and those years was heavy into heroin.
Oh, yeah, heroin was there.
Heroin was very popular with jazz musicians and Latino musicians back in the 50s and early 60s. Later on in life, 70s, when now we changed to the cocaine thing, but that didn't come strong until later. First it was pot and heroin and pills back in those days. Pills were very popular when I came into the Palladium.
Okay, Pete Nader sends his regards, his love to his brothers here. And he asks, and especially to Carlos, there was a limit of the time that the bands had to play each tune. Was there like a 5-minute limit for each song, or was it free?
No.
You could answer that, and Carlos can answer that as well, because he was a dancer at the time.
¿Cuánto de largo eran los bailes? Las canciones, ¿cuánto de largo eran?
I can hear.
Were the songs very long, Carlos? Were they longer than 5 minutes?
You know what?
If the songs that were played by the bands longer than 5 minutes?
I would say no. I have a couple of those shows.
Sometimes 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, it all depends. If they had so many, sometimes they had songs that last 7, 8, 10 minutes,
So it all depends on the band that was playing. It all depends.
Exactly.
I have the mambo shows.
Okay.
And Carlos is like, 2-3 minutos.
You got a limit. They used to give you a limit. They had 3 teams doing the show, So they give you 5 minutes to do it, or they give you 10 minutes to do it, depend. If sometimes you have 2 groups, two two
bands.
performers, two people.
Pareja.
Dos parejas. So you got a little time. So you could do. I used to do 3 minutes, three numbers in the floor, you know, and but mine was like I could cut everything short, thing like that, you know. Well, the people had to come on Wednesday was because the dancing, you know, get to dancing. That was, you know, it's not a place to, people used to go and eat and things like that. You just go and do a show. So the show of Broadway Phoenix, people used to come to see the show in the Palladium, you know. So the dancing in the Palladium. Everybody's gone.
Carlos, did you play conga at the Palladium with a sextet?
No, this is story. I made a group, you know, this is when I come back from, I came back from Japan, you know. I was in Japan at that time. I already do professional work anyway. I was around, you know, had a knack. And I got hurt in my leg. So when I came back, I made a little group to the Palladium. And I played Eddie Palmieri, Caco y Carlos and Sestek. You know, I used to play conga and things like that, but I got stopped playing the conga because the union. I didn't belong to the union. I don't belong to the 108. So I cannot touch an instrument. I could leave the band and group there and things like that, but I used to do the dancing, and you know, I leave my group. As a matter of fact, this one I'm going to tell you, told Johnny, his father played drum for me. You know, he played drum for me. We went to.
You heard that, Johnny?
Yeah, I'm hearing that.
He played drum for me.
Interesting.
You know, I went down there with Carmen, you know, and then I do the dancing. Johnny, his father, I'm sorry to say, Johnny La Vaca used to call him, you know, and then he used to play, you know, the drum, and he used to play the bongo, you know, I need the group, you know, hey, go ahead, you know, but I can tell no, I can touch no instrument, you know. I belong to the ADBA, but I didn't belong to the 108, you know. So my thing was dancing, so I didn't worry about it. So I travel a little, lot of places that, you know, I went over to Japan, I went to Hong Kong, I went to Argentina, I went all these places. Yeah, I met big, you know, big
Artists.
Jeffrey Holder, you know, the dancer.
Yes.
The actor.
Jeffrey Holder, yeah.
He used to go to Palladium a lot. I saw him in Palladium a few times.
And I met Marlon Brando. He was Candito was teaching him how to play conga. You know, how to play conga. And I bet another one, Tony Bennett. I met it in Argentina. You know, and he did it for me in Argentina. It was incredible. He said, you know, he went to a club. I was working. You know, I went there. He said, I'm going to see my boys. He said, what's our boy? In Atlantic City, I worked with Sammy Davis Jr., you know, on the show, you know, Slappy White, and Dinah Washington. Then I did a show, Easter Parade for the movie, the show, big show, Mena Ferguson. Ferguson and the Jazz Dead.
Were you part of Mambo USA? Were you part of that tour?
No, I didn't went to that show.
Okay.
I didn't went to that show.
Let me ask two more questions, guys. Someone asked about the Palm Gardens movie, the Mambo Madness, which was a 20-minute piece that was shown in all the RKO movies, excuse me, before film. Were the ladies that were selected in the movie, and maybe all of you could answer this, were they picked because of their talent of dancing, or because of their beauty, or was it a mixture of both? This is what a question that was asked.
Johnny maybe would agree with me, Charlie. I say it was a mixture of both.
Exactly.
Don't forget, you had Cuban Pete, you had Millie Donay, you had Marilyn Winters,
Right.
you had Killer Joe Pirro,
Right.
you even had Tito Rodríguez doing breakdance.
Yeah.
So I think it was a combination of both.
Totally agree, Joe. Totally agree.
And to close our show for today, is there any club that came after the closing of the Palladium that came close to it in terms of what, you know, all these wonderful things that took place there?
The Corso came close.
You agree?
The Corso was about the closest one to the Palladium.
Yeah, the only difference that it wasn't the big three, those bands, that caliber bands. It was now Típica, Pacheco, Casanovas,
everybody.
Taco Cerón, you know, it was a whole different thing. But they had the 4 days of music, plus the owner started doing Barney Google's on the block. They had like 5 nights of music in those days.
Johnny, you had across the street. We had the Yorkville Casino. You had Barney Google's. You had the Corso. All in one block.
Yeah, it was swinging for a little while.
All in one block.
That's why I say it was very close to the Palladium vibe.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, I have to close out our session for today, but I'm going to start with our dear friend, Carlos Cha-Cha Taps Arroyo. Carlos, thank you very much. I want you to say goodbye to everybody and thank everyone for their presence and your final words. Carlos.
Gracias, José. Gracias a todos. Y hagamos un favor. No se olviden de usar esto.
Yes.
Hay que sumar a la familia y cuidarse a ustedes.
That's right.
Yo, Charlie.
Son 90 ya.
Oh, how old? How old? Wow. He said 90.
Oh.
He said 90.
Otra cosa que te cuenta.
Anda, carajo.
90.
Wow.
Gracias, Charlie.
Give him a round of applause.
Yes, sir.
Gracias.
Yeah.
By the way, Joe,
que salió the matches de Palladium.
Oh, the matches.
Este soy yo, el único fósforo que hicieron el Palladium.
I want to see that. I want a copy of that.
Put it up, Carlos. Put it up. Charlie, put it up.
Mira el nombre.
Bring it up.
It's hard to see with the glare.
Because of the glare of the TV. But it's very interesting. We're going to see if we get a copy and post it up on social media so that everybody could appreciate it. Thank you, Carlos. Johnny, close it out.
Thank you, Jose.
Gracias por invitarme.
Siempre, Carlos. Siempre.
Charlie, te quiero, okay? You bring me back a lot of memories from when I first got to the Palladium and saw you dancing. The experience of being at the Palladium, playing the Palladium was something very hard to explain. I mean, it's such a big part of my life, you know, and I never get tired of talking about the Palladium because it's something that was out of this world. It's out of this world, man. For a young musician to get to play there with Tito Puente at 17 years old was out of this world.
Wonderful, Johnny.
Thank you, my brother.
You're welcome, always. Joe, close it out.
All right, basically, I have 2 copies, which we'll gladly share with you, of the mambo shows. Machito doing one and Tito Puente doing one with Candido. Those mambo shows on Wednesday night. Most important thing I can say, it's been a pleasure. I am very fortunate to have a lot of these live recordings. Thanks to Ernie Hensley, thanks to Tito Puente, thanks to Aniva Vasquez. I have a lot of stuff from the Palladium that's it. But most important to this whole audience, remember your culture. Sin la cultura nosotros no estamos en nada. Know your culture. Pass it on to your children and everybody. And I see everybody Saturday. I only got 3 lectures left. I do my lectures every Saturday. I got 2 more after this Saturday. And enjoy it all. I mean, that's the most important thing. Learn your culture. Johnny and I, Carlos, we are part of our culture. We want this generation not only to know the big 3, but know your culture. Where does your music come from? It's very important. My lecture series are from 11 to 1 on, I will post it on Facebook. And I do it on Zoom like we're doing today. And most important, Joe, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you for returning. I want to thank Ostos Center because they give me the opportunity to have this platform to present to you this type of information that we must hold on to and spread the word and let everybody know, especially for those the future generation that are coming up. We need to inform them, as you said, Joe. I just piggyback on that. Thank you, Ostos, for the opportunity. Thanks to the sponsors that make these programs possible. I want to thank Josie Rivera and Edgar Collazo for some of the pictures, as well as you, Joe, and you, Johnny, and of course you, Carlos, and Lucy, that's in the background, your wife. And thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule, out of your lives, to sit and join us in this Conversación de Música. Thank you, everyone. Take care and see you in a few weeks. It'll be posted up on social media. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Let's take back our city, one vaccination at a time. Safe and effective COVID-19 vaccines are here. Get yours when it's your turn. Learn more at nyc.gov/COVID vaccine. No matter how much we want it gone, COVID-19 is still here. That's why we all need to keep wearing our face coverings, keep physical distancing, and keep washing our hands. And as always, stay at home if you're feeling sick. The COVID-19 vaccine is available to certain groups in NYC, but now is not the time to stop protecting ourselves. Learn more at nyc.gov/health/coronavirus.